Hey guys, we're going to cover the hip hinge today, and I have a beautiful model with me to help me demonstrate the ins and outs of the hip hinge, some common errors, and how we can correct that, right? So Missy's going to be my demonstration, and here is the first of a few common errors. So common error number one is that we have a bowing kind of movement here, and she's just bowing forward, okay, instead of reaching the hips back, okay? When you bow forward, that creates a little bit more tension and pressure on that low back, and you're setting yourself up for injury if you're bowing forward, okay? Common error number two is rounding the back. Come back up. So what I'm looking at here is she's getting this rounding movement through the deadlift, and that's never a good sign, okay? Common error number three, going into more of a squatty movement instead of a hip hinge movement, okay? So here's the kind of difference between the squat and the hip hinge. In a squat, you're going to get equal flexion in your ankles, knees, and hips. Come back up. Again, you're going to see flexion in the ankles, knees, and hips, okay? In the hip hinge, you get most of your flexion through the hips. So if you notice, there's really no flexion in the ankles. There's a little bit of flexion in the knee, but most of it's coming through the hips. On the bottom position, her shoulders remain above her hip line, or if she was going to the deepest point, she would stop at where her hips are. But that's where, if you go farther than the hip line, that's when you start getting that rounded back position in the bottom position, okay? So let's talk about the setup. If we have Missy face forward, the foot position doesn't have to change too much from that squat setup that we talked about. So we're going to have her set up with her feet just outside shoulder width apart. She could even go a little bit wider if she wanted to. And we're going to let her externally rotate her foot just a little bit. And you can test this to see which one feels better for you. So the stance and foot position, just play around with to see which feels a little bit better for you, okay? The next position, she's going to rotate towards me, is she's going to maintain a neutral spine. And what she's not doing is tilting her hips forward, and she's not tucking way under. She's finding that neutral position, okay? And then she's bracing her abs for a plank. That way we know that her entire spine is in a good, safe position, and she's ready to do a hip hinge, okay? Moving on, feel good? Mm-hmm. Moving on to the cues, okay? So she's got her nice neutral position. She's got a good foot stance, good foot position. Now she's ready for the first cue. And that is going to be for her to brace and reach. Come back up. She's braced, and watch how she reaches her butt straight back. Imagine there's a wall behind her. Come back up. Brace and reach. That's cue number one. Notice we don't have any rounding of the back going on. She's maintaining that brace position, and all of the movement comes through the hips and not the spine, okay? Cue number two, as she braces and reaches, she's going to come down. I'm going to tell her to drive her foot through the floor to stand, right? Come back down. And she's thinking about driving her feet through the floor to stand, okay? And then the last cue is I'm going to give her, break my fingers with your armpits, or think about squeezing two sponges out with her armpits. So she's creating tension here, she's creating tension here. Now she's going to brace and reach and drive. And she's staying tight through that whole movement, and she's staying safe with a nice neutral spine. Okay, we are moving into starting progressions of the hip hinge. And all we're going to do is walk you through a few different exercises to make sure you are in the right position and you can build up that hip hinge and start doing heavier loads or more resisted loads eventually. Okay, so the first exercise is called the stick hip hinge. And so we're going to take this stick, she's going to put it on her back, and one hand is going to hold it up on her head, and then the opposite hand, top of the hand, is going to hold it against her back. So there's 3 points of contact here. The head, the T-spine, and then her tailbone is touching. Her goal here is to make sure that none of those points come off of her back while she does a hip hinge. So let's go through our cues. Come back up a second. We're going to brace. She's going to reach her hips back. And as she gets to that bottom position, we still have contact here. Now show me if your back came off, like if you rounded your back. Notice how the back of that stick comes off. We want to find that position. So if that happened, you find the position, drive through the floor, come back up. Brace, reach, and drive. Brace, reach, and drive. Nice job. And so what that gives us is a nice hip hinge position with a good neutral spine in a braced position. That's the key component here, okay? So, moving on to progression number 2. We call it the good morning. So, what you can do is you could use a dumbbell for this. I prefer the kettlebell. It kind of gives you a little bit easier handle to grab. I'm going to give this to Missy. She's going to hold it by the horns. And as she's holding it now, she's not pulling it apart like this. She's trying to break the handle and pull the handle apart and squeeze her shoulder blades together. Okay? Same cues applies. Brace and reach. And do you feel that fired up? Yeah, so she's getting a good tension feeling up in this upper back. And she's maintaining that good neutral spine. One more rep, brace and reach, and drive. Now what'll happen sometimes is, this starts to happen, or this starts to happen. You want to keep it up at that chest level, right, and not let it fall. Okay? So that's the kettlebell good morning. You want to go a little bit lighter on these. If you're going too heavy, then you won't even be able to hold this up in this position. So this is a 10-pound. For guys, I probably wouldn't go at the very max, around 35 pounds. For ladies, I really probably wouldn't go over 26 pounds at the most. Okay? Next, we have a dumbbell deadlift, but we're going to do a single dumbbell deadlift. So she's holding it. She's going to bring it down in that position. Her goal here now is the same. She's going to squeeze her armpits down or create that tension. She's going to brace, and she's going to reach. Come back up. Now, what we're looking for here is that this dumbbell stays close to the legs. If it starts to go away, you're going to start rounding your back. You're going to bow forward, and it's going to put more tension and pressure on that low back, which can cause pain. Did that feel strong?
No.
Okay. It's not strong either. Okay? So you can go as heavy as you want to on this. In fact, we're going to exchange this out, and we're going to give Missy a little bit heavier weight. Now this is 30 pounds. She's going to hold it the same. Brace and reach. Tension. And deadlift. Yep. Perfect. One more. Nice job. And as you saw, she was able to hold position, hold tension the entire time in a safe manner. And that's a great way to start making sure that you have your body in the right position and you're creating the right tension with the right cues to ensure that you get stronger. After these progressions, we can start working into double dumbbell deadlifts. We can work into suitcase deadlifts, holding on the side, and then eventually into barbell stuff. So give those a try, and then let us know if you have any questions.